Welcome aboard, everyone. Simon here from the Wells of Wall Street. I hope you're doing fantastically well wherever you are in the world. Guys, we're going to look at Quant, QNT, on the exchange. New microphone. Hopefully you're enjoying the wonderful audio volume. Do let us know if there's any issues, but hopefully it's all good. So guys, Quant recently, actually, to be fair, have announced sort of a partnership with the likes of Oracle. We won't go too much detail on this because we have covered Quant in a previous videos as an introduction, etc. But generally speaking, this particular aspect of news, I think this is a couple of weeks old now, this article, but of course Oracle being an extremely massive project in itself, or company in itself around the world, particularly I know it as a sort of big cloud-based system offering a multitude of services to various different sectors around the world. But of course, they are now entering the kind of blockchain platform aspect, trying to become, as they say here, interoperable with other aspects, certainly within blockchain. So Hyperledger, we did cover a while back as well. There's a multitude of members, that's what they call them, or partners if you like, that are very much related to Hyperledger Foundation right now. I mean, there's some big names here, guys. I mean, you've got Visa, you've got Swift, you've got the likes of big companies like Siemens, R3 Corda. We've got Quant on there, as we just mentioned. There's a massive amount of companies on here for various reasons. Some from things like supply chain, some involved with electronic aspects, and Microsoft, for example, are very heavily involved in blockchain at the moment, as are the likes of IBM. I think IBM have their own one, actually. I've tried to do a bit of research on it in the background, but I just couldn't find anything about, is it their own or if they're using a particular chain. I have to do a bit more digging on that one, I think. But yeah, generally speaking, this, of course, is really good news for Quant moving forward. That it's got these fantastic partnerships, fantastic opportunities moving forwards. But I particularly am very interested, as we've mentioned already, in terms of this aspect here, where we're talking about connectors and layers and multiple DLTs. They mentioned, obviously, some of the names that we just talked about, but like Ripple, Bitcoin, Ethereum, R3 Corda, of course, we talk a lot about in Zinfin XDC. This is just fantastic to see Quant obviously related to these kind of projects, but more importantly, its integration with companies such as Oracle. I think it's really important to emphasize and understand that some of these projects sometimes don't get talked about enough. Maybe it's a distraction with the other ones, but Quant is something that's been on our radar for a long time. I missed the opportunity to get it earlier in the year. That's why we're doing this video, really, is to jump into the question of, is it now a good time to do that? And we'll go into the chart on that in a second. But one of my final points from the UK's perspective, we've had big conversations recently, certainly throughout this year, as well as a couple of years ago, to be fair. It's continuous development, of course. It's not something new. But here, for example, about the Digital Pound. Now, the Digital Pound Foundation in particular is the consortium, if you like, that's building, I think it was Electronium, Quant, there's elements of R3 and a couple of other projects in there as well. I think Avalanche was one of them. Basically, an advisory board is being built to determine how does the UK go forwards in its CBDC philosophy and what it wants to bring to the table for the UK, both on a public scale and obviously a corporate private scale as well. And Quant's certainly going to have its big part to play as a distributed ledger in this system, and it's fantastic to see that. So when people say, like, well, what's some of the case studies of these kind of projects? Well, it's clear as day, through various media sources, in particular from government websites and things like that, where you're seeing Quant's name very much heavily involved, and particularly around the CBDC structures. It's exciting for me. And I remember when the Digital Pound Foundation sort of announced it's like mini advisory board, if you want to call it that. I was like, oh, Quant, yeah, no, that's been on my radar. I'm going to go and get some. And then I saw the price and I was like, it's not probably the right time. So you do have to judge chart moves and things like that. But I guess on that note, guys, let's jump into the chart as it is now. Smash that like button if you like what you hear and see, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. So a few observations. I was going to put this video out earlier today, and actually at that point we were just on the $200 mark, and I was halfway through recording and it dropped down to 196. Then the dogs came home and making loads of noise, so I had to basically stop the recording and do it again tonight. But my point being that, in my opinion, we've hit a very interesting pinpoint area for QNT on the chart. Why am I saying this? Well, if we go back historically, and albeit this is only QCoin's data, so we only go as far back as February anyway, but we had this big rise up here in September, okay? So only, 2.5 months ago? So you could argue from this point here around $207, we had a bit of a retracement back into the beginning of September, and we had this massive parabolic run, bit of a correction and a jump back up again. And then since then, from this top point here, can you believe it? $429. Look what it was back here, $44. Absolutely crazy. And this emphasized my point actually before I carry on. Some people always look at crypto and they go, oh, $45, $50 is quite expensive. It really isn't if you believe in the project, in the aspect of what it's capable of doing and what it's about. And in particular, Quant, for example, it's something I was looking at probably when it was around $30 odd, but I had so much in my portfolio already of different assets. I was like, I'm going to not pursue this one just yet. I'll wait. And that was a big mistake, because I then looked at this area and I thought, no, it's gone now. I don't think I'm going to get massive gains. And albeit, yeah, it has gone up to these big dizzy heights of 429. We've had the retracement back down to this 200 marks as it is right now. Okay, so a good 250-ish, 230-ish, if you like, retracement. And because of this point here, you've basically got price discovery mode, right? And that works in both ways. It works in the upward trend and also on the downwards. And what I mean by that is, on the downward, you're going to start trying to find the support levels that we need to get to in order for Quant to re-establish itself and then take us to the next levels. So right now, I'm really interested in this area personally to probably purchase a good small bag of Quant. Now, I do believe there's an opportunity that it may come down a bit further. I do believe, even looking back here when I was initially going to invest, I thought this has got legs in it, 100%, because of what it's doing in the world and what it's going to do in the future. But I think it was still massively undervalued at these areas. Okay, so looking now at this chart, I'm seeing this area here of great interest, because we had some really good resistance and support areas around this area between August and the beginning of September. And that's the area that we're approaching now. We've had a couple dip downs to this area in the last couple of days or few days. And it has indeed rejected those thus far. That doesn't mean that it's definitely over. I'm just going to zoom in so everyone can see this clearly now, what I'm talking about. So it's around this area really where the fib retracement line is that we drew a while back, a few videos back on Quant. And I think it is definitely a first area for me to be very interested in this. Do I think it's going to come down lower? I do anticipate potentially that it may do that. I mean, the indicator at the moment here on the right hand side that you can see is in a bit of a sell mode still at the moment. We're going to confirm quickly the RSI movements and the MACD as well before we conclude that narrative. So actually, if we look here, there is a bit of a narrowing here, but it then jumped back out. So it looks like the selling is not completed with QNT, even though it's looking a bit more positive today than it was perhaps a few days ago. The RSI is currently around 34. At its current motion, I would actually be inclined personally for me to be waiting maybe towards that 32.30 mark. Now that's very negative thinking, but it's possible. You've got to be realistic with this. So we have this big sell-off, overselling aspect here. We've had a bit of a cool off, bit of an injection, not quite enough, especially around that Oracle announcement. Nothing really happened with it. But there's clearly holders. There's clearly people still trying to push this up in some capacity. But the volumes are reducing, which is good to see. But I don't think we're fully completed on that area. So this gap really needs to fully narrow itself and switch over before we get a bit more confident with it. So that's why I'm thinking this is a great area for me now personally, and maybe some of you out there that missed out on quant before, to potentially consider looking at this in more detail moving forward in the coming weeks. So we got this point here, and I'm very interested in potentially triggering some USDT going in this. This is me personally, it's not financial advice. But I am also interested in some slightly lower regions, because it's still on the emphasis and the philosophy that we just mentioned with these big tail ups. There is, if you think about it, so from this point here, for example, $64 up to 189. Okay, there is no support mechanism in between this area at all. You could argue down here at the 92 area, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this big gap here. Okay, so for those that can't really see what I'm talking about, I'm just going to draw it in with a wonderful rectangle right now. So we've got this area here. I'm not saying quant will definitely come down to here, but it's certainly something to prove that there is no support mechanism there yet. And sometimes you need to come back and test these lines, whether it be immediately or in the near future. In this case, we're looking at 2.5 months at least to be coming down to at least this area, let alone this area down here. So we're touching really on this area of volatility that we saw around the, as we said, middle August to beginning September. Okay, so we're there right now. We had the tail up already today, back up to this over the 200 mark. So in my opinion, the next 2-3 days are really important to see if we close again over that 200 mark. So before I put this, let's put the second rectangle in there now, because it's decided to draw itself in. The other area down here, and I know it looks very close to the other one, but actually you're still talking about a good $20 or so difference. So I'm interested in these two particular areas. For me personally, I'm happy to be purchasing some here myself. I think I'm reducing the risk possible, but equally on the other hand, if it was any other chart, I'd be not so worried. But this is quite a big jump, because if you do enter here and we do come down to these areas, which is quite plausible in what we've just said, you're looking at $30-50 per coin reduction, and that's quite a heavy thing to bring back to the table, irrespective of whether you believe in quant or not. You just have to be respectful for the chart itself. So they're the two areas probably more realistically that I'm aiming for, but I wouldn't be too disheartened right now personally for me to be buying some small bags here. That's why I said small bags, because my main entry points would be love to be down here. If I miss these areas, so be it. I've made that mistake, but I can at least get more around this area once I see and feel there's a confirmation of moving in a more positive direction. So we've got to see how that plays out. But like I said, from this point here where we are now, for those that missed out on quant previously, it's definitely a good idea to really keep an eye on these chart movements of quant over the next couple of weeks, in my opinion, because I do think December and January and maybe into February, March is where the bull run perhaps will maybe end. I believe it will definitely go into 2022, but I think these are the small areas now in the coming weeks where we have a definitive opportunity to really take advantage of certainly some of these big ones that are coming down after big fluctuating prices upwards a couple of months ago. Let us know what you think about that in the comments below, but I'm sticking with that theory, and we'll see if it plays out, of course. But I'm very excited to see how that might work. But we've seen on the RSI it's coming to a low point, so I think we're structurally considering that this will tail off at some point in the coming weeks. But that takedown from where we were saying about 36 to 32 or 30 on the RSI could arguably bring us down to these levels. We'll have to see, and it's all about, in my opinion, the next 2 or 3 days of trying to get support at this 200 level. If we can do that, we may consolidate here and confirming these areas that we saw in August, and then push quant up. It's very plausible in both areas, but I wanted to make 2 observations there clear to everyone out there. And also my thoughts and theories about potentially entering this market for quant that I missed out on previously. Obviously, gutted to not have gone with my gut in general around this sort of April-May time. But here we are. I still think there's valuable gains to be made in quant moving forward. And of course, even this gap here to be filled is a good $200 odd, kind of a double money position as a minimum. I believe coming in the coming months. So let us know what you think about that in the comments below. If you're holding QNT in your portfolio. Let us know when you got in, what price point. I don't need to know how many bags you got, this, that, and the other. Just very interested to know where you got in. And congratulations to those who have been long-term holders of Quant. I think there's big things coming. We will keep you updated on Quant as time goes by, and for sure any further announcements regarding partnerships or anything like that. So thanks very much for watching, guys. We will see you in the next QNT video. Bye bye.